So good morning and welcome to the sixth session of Spirituality Basics. It's a forum where I discussed some common topics on spirituality on a very basic and fundamental level, mainly with the idea of increasing interest in spirituality. And of course, during the process, you gain some knowledge about the topic that's been discussed. Today's topic is very fundamental because we'll be looking into something which forms the very core of spirituality, the four paths of attaining enlightenment or self-realization or God realization or simply freedom from the cycle of birth and death, whatever you may call it. So we'll look into how what these four paths are and how they are different, their origins, which path to follow, and finally, how to harmonize the four paths. So today it's 30 minutes to salvation. Now, yoga means union. It's the union of the individual soul with the supreme soul, or the union of the human with the divine. However, this definition is symbolic. In actual practice, yoga is about the union of the self with reality, which is our real self, which can also be called self-realization. Yoga is the journey to realize our reality and become free from the illusion that is created by the material world around us, what we called Maya. It is the journey from complete ignorance to complete enlightenment. Thus, the ultimate goal is self-realization through removal of the illusionary ego. This journey can be done in various ways. However, if you look at the ancient scriptures, like the Vedas, there are two major sections in the Vedas, which we discussed previously in our Veda and Upanishad session. Namely, they are the Karma Kandas, which include the Samahita, the Brahmanas, the Aranyakas, containing the mantras, hymns, rituals, etc., and the Gyan Kanda, which are the Upanishads that gives us the philosophical part. So, strictly speaking, traditionally, there were only two paths, the Bhakti Yoga out of the Karma Kanda and Gyan Yoga out of the Gyan Kanda or the Upanishads. But then came Patanjali's Yoga Sutras in 500 BC, and it said that you can realize self and understand your true nature even through meditation. And finally, Karma Yoga, which was originally not considered a path as such, but as a very important preparatory act. And in fact, sanctity to Karma Yoga was given in Bhagavad Gita when it included is one of the paths. Now, we have seen that across religions, the purpose of life is self-realization, God realization, moksha, freedom from the cycle of birth and death, whatever you may call. In Hinduism, four distinct paths have been given in the scriptures for such attainment. Gyan Yoga, that's the way of knowledge. Bhakti Yoga, the way of devotion. Raja Yoga, the way of meditation. And Karma Yoga, the way of work. Though there are four different paths, the destination is the same, which is self-realization, just that the routes are different. They are also known as the four paths of yoga, but by yoga here, we do not mean the physical yoga, what we mean is the philosophy of yoga. So let's see each of them one by one. First is Gyan Yoga. As the name suggests, it is to do with Gyan or knowledge. It is the most direct path to self-realization and is also the most difficult. As we saw, it originates out of the Gyan Kanda as given in the Upanishads. The Gyan Kanda is all about attaining self-realization through understanding our true nature. The same message is pushed through by the different Upanishads in different ways, but the message is the same. Gyan Yoga primarily says that we are free right here, right now, but we don't realize it. And this is due to ignorance or agyana. We do not know our real nature, which is immortal existence, unchanging awareness, and consciousness and ever-present bliss, Sat Chit Ananda. We are already that, but we don't know it because of ignorance. A Gyan Yogi uses the mind to examine its own nature through right inquiry, which is vichara, and constant self-analysis, viveka, or discrimination of what is right and what is wrong. The process that is followed in Gyan Yoga, given in the Upanishads, is Sravana, Manana, Nidithyasana. Sravana means hearing the truth. Sravana actually means hearing. So here Sravana means hearing the truth. Truth about our true nature of self. And it is said that everybody, not everyone is fortunate enough to even hear the truth, let alone realize it. You need some good past karmas even for this. So you all are lucky ones. The base of Jnana Yoga are the Vedas, as we have just seen. And the Shruti means they have been transmitted from one person to another through hearing. There was nothing in writing. Since the Upanishads is the basis for Gyan Yoga, the first step, of course, then is to hear the truth about self-realization. So after you have heard it, the second step is manana. You ask questions about it because, as it is, the truth is quite radical. Aham Brahmasmi, I am the ultimate God. Very difficult to believe. Per se, they are difficult to believe. So the Upanishads also understood this and answers all questions about the truth, about our true nature. That our true nature is pure consciousness, which is beyond life and death. Even in Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna has emphasized it at so many places that the soul is immortal and it does not die. So the second step is asking questions and convincing yourself about what we have heard. The third and the most important step is Nidithyasana. That is the assimilation or putting into practice after hearing the truth, after asking question, understanding the truth, then through meditation. Meditation not in the sense of sitting in dhyana, but constantly telling yourself that Tattvamasi, thou art that. That is the Vedantic meditation. In fact, you might be knowing that before having food, sometimes we chant the mantra which is given in the Bhagavad Gita of Brahma Arpanam, Brahma Havi, Brahma Agnu, Brahma Nahutam, Brahmaiva Tena Gantavyam, Brahma Karma Samadhina. So this is given in the Bhagavad Gita, and often we chant it before taking our food. It means the oblation is Brahman, the ladle with which it is offered is Brahman, the act of offering is Brahman, and the sacrificial fire is also Brahman. That means God is everywhere and in everything. So this is a type of Vedantic meditation when we chant it before every time we eat food. So constantly telling ourselves that Brahman is in everything. So in Gyan Yoga, it is through the rigorous inquiry about our true nature that we attain self-realization. And since as per Vedanta, you yourself are the God, it is also called God realization. And this is the most difficult of all the paths. Sri Ramakrishna says in his Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, that the words are good, but it needs assimilation. In Bengali, many of you are Bengali here, they said that kothagulo to bhalo, kintu dharona hawa chai. Next is Bhakti Yoga. As the name suggests, it is the path of devotion, bhakti, belief. It says that there is an ultimate reality, call it God. You take it on faith, on belief, and you love, worship, and surrender to God. And by devotion to God, by the grace of God, one will overcome suffering and attain peace, bliss, and fulfillment. Most mass religion is basically Bhakti Yoga. When we use the term religion today, it's in a way, closer to Bhakti Yoga. In fact, Bhagavad Gita in chapter 7, very interesting, gives 4 instances when people turn to God. Please identify yourself with the situations. First, when they are in trouble, in distress. You often say, Bhagwan bachalo. Second, seekers of knowledge, jigyasur. Curious to know about God. Third is seekers of worldly possession, artharthi. They believe only God can give them what they want. And the fourth is jnani, those who are situated in knowledge. He's the one who realized that there is nothing other than God. He sees God in everything. He wants God and nothing else. There are no other desires or ulterior motives in such a devotee. It is a case of unconditional love for God. If you want to follow the path of Bhakti Yoga, you will have to fit into the 4th category. But unfortunately, that's not the case for most of us. And in this path, the aspirants channel their emotion into devotion, developing humility, self-surrender, and the feeling of being an instrument in the hands of the divine. It's a case of complete surrender. It is believed that as a reward for one's devotion, the God will free his followers from the cycle of birth and death. That is the belief. That is how Bhakti Yoga works. The Bhagavad Gita considers Bhakti to be one of the best paths, as we all know. And this we find in chapter 4, verse 10, where Sri Krishna says that, freed from attachment, fear and anger, fully absorbed in me, taking refuge in me, and purified by the fire of self-knowledge, many have attained me. Very direct, comes from Sri Krishna. In fact, a vast majority of Hindus, they practice bhakti as the main form of religious expression. The added advantage is that in Hinduism, we have the pleasure of choosing our favorite god, from 33 crore gods. Whether it's Krishna, Rama, Vishnu, Shiva, or any other form of mother goddess like Durga, Kali, etc. Bhagavad Gita very importantly says also in chapter 9, verse 32, that all those who take refuge in me, whatever their birth, race, sex, or caste, even those whom society scorns, will attain the supreme destination. Very important. So it doesn't matter who you are. So this is for everybody. And that is why this is by far the easiest of all paths. There is a blanket promise coming from Bhagavan himself that no preconditions, just surrender to God and attain enlightenment. Third is the Raja Yoga, which is the path of meditation. It is based on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, which is the oldest text on meditation. It says that we are that unlimited consciousness, ever free, but we don't realize it because of the restlessness of our mind. In Gyan Yoga, it was knowledge. Here it says it is because the restlessness of our mind. If the mind can be calmed and concentrated, the fact that we are the Atman will be revealed to us through meditation. And that is freedom. Chitta vritti nirodha. That's how it defines yoga in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras. It is the cessation of the modification of the mind. The eightfold path is given in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras. We have seen this earlier also, so I'll just give a brief this thing. Yama, which gives the moral discipline standards. Niyamas, they are the personal conduct levels. Asana, meaning you have to, sit straight, because meditation is the route, meditation is the process through which we attain the enlightenment. So you have to be sitting straight. Pranayama is breath control, again very important in yoga. Pratyahara is withdrawal of the senses. You should be able to, before you enter into meditation, withdrawal of the senses. Dharana is concentration. We had an entire session on it, which is unwavering mind, which melts into dhyana, which is meditation, and finally Samadhi, when the true self is revealed to you. In Bhagavad Gita also, in chapter 6, Sri Krishna gives a detailed account to Arjuna as to, in fact, that is the chapter Yoga of Meditation, as to how to be a yogi through meditation. He gives the detailed account of how to sit, what to wear, how much to eat, everything, all the details. But Arjuna, after hearing Sri Krishna in length, says that meditation is not possible, as the mind is turbulent and is more difficult to control. Even, it is easier to control the wind, but mind is more turbulent than the wind. Finally, Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga consists of two words. First is karma, signifying action, and yoga, implying selfless action, or as stated in Bhagavad Gita, action as per the dharma. Remember, when Arjuna refused to fight the war, Sri Krishna convinced him that it is his dharma to fight the war. If there is one shloka in Bhagavad Gita that you have heard of or you know it, it is that famous karmanne vadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. So, karm kiye jao, phal ki chinta mat karo. It is the yoga of action, the path of selfless action. The path of Karma Yoga involves performing an action without any expectation of reward in return, thus renouncing the fruits of the action. But actually, it is just the change in attitude, not the action per se. It is transforming all our work, whatever we are doing, into spiritual practice, as a spiritual work. So for all householders like us, it is the most practical path, as we cannot leave our home, we cannot leave our home and family and be a monk and go to the Himalayas. Not possible. What Karma Yoga says is that you keep doing whatever you are doing, but with a different mindset. Spiritualize your work. Because in today's world, karma, our action is inevitable. There is no escape. Action and work is central to modern society. So one must spiritualize that. Otherwise, spirituality is absolutely impossible. And there is also the factor of social commitment. Spirituality involves upliftment of the society, helping others. So in Gyan Yoga, ignorance was the problem. So the solution was knowledge. In Bhakti Yoga, faith in God was the problem. So the solution was faith in God, complete surrender to God. In Raja Yoga, the aberration or the restlessness of the mind was the problem. The solution was to attain a steady mind through meditation. Now in Karma Yoga, it is said that selfishness is the problem, meaning that if you are working for yourself, for satisfying your own needs, it can never lead to lasting happiness. It ultimately leads to frustration and unhappiness. So Karma Yoga says that if we can direct our energies to the welfare of others, unselfish action, then it will purify the mind, and the truth that we are not the body and the mind, we are the pure consciousness, that will become evident to us. Generally in the history of Vedanta, Karma Yoga is always seen as a subsidiary or preparatory practice. As we just saw, it was not considered as one of the major paths to enlightenment. Now the golden question, which path to choose, and how to harmonize the four paths. The four yogas are based on the four faculties of a human being. The physical part, Karma Yoga, emotional, Bhakti Yoga, will, Raja Yoga, and intellect, Gyan Yoga. I again refer to what Vivekananda said. We have referred it earlier also, but this is the full quote. Each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest this divinity within by controlling which is Karma Yoga or worship, Bhakti Yoga, or mental discipline, which is Raja Yoga, or philosophy, Gyan Yoga. Buy one or more or all of these and be free. This is the whole of religion. Doctrines, dogmas, or rituals, or books, or temples, or forms are secondary details. What a powerful statement. So as per him, this freedom or liberation is the whole religion. That's our religion. And every other thing, like your temples, rituals, they're all secondary. And Swami Vivekananda was one person who advocated the use of all the four paths of yoga. He said that all of us have little bit of everything in us. So use all the four paths of yoga to attain enlightenment. Because every person is different. And we have to see that whichever faculty is the core strength of a person. We all have core strengths. My strength could be different, your strength could be different. That can be used as the primary means to the goal. I'm calling it primary because it has got to be a synthesis of more than one yoga. If I'm a religious kind of a person, I will make Bhakti Yoga as the main path and then supplement it with the practices and the knowledge from the other parts of the yogas. Similarly, if I'm not a religious kind of a person and let's say I'm an intellectual type, and then I can make Gyan Yoga as the main path and take the help of the other paths in attaining enlightenment. Now let's see how to harmonize the various paths. Traditionally, they recommended a combination of all the four yogas, but in a hierarchical approach. So let's see what Advaita Vedanta has to say about it. This is the Advaita Vedanta approach. The other approaches will be different. Here the Gyan Yoga is the primary. So according to Advaita Vedanta, we have seen that we are the Brahman, Aham Brahmasmi. So, but if you are the Brahman, and then what's the problem? The problem is that I know it, but I don't realize it. I don't feel it. That's the problem. Advaita says this is due to ignorance, ajnana, about our real nature. Who am I? What am I? So, what is the solution to ajnana? It is jnana. Jnana that I am the Brahman. And how to get the knowledge? How to get it? The method is Gyan Yoga. And the practices, as we have just seen, are the steps are Shravana, Manana, and Nidithyasana. But you may say that I have been studying Vedanta for so many years. It's not working. We then come to the next level of problem because the mind is scattered. It is unable to grasp the teachings of Vedanta. So there is Vikshepa. For the scattered mind, the solution is Ekagrata, which is concentration. And how does one get concentration? Through Upasana, worship or meditation. Referring to Bhakti Yoga and Raja Yoga. Now come to the next level of problem. You see, these are all practical solutions. I'm sure you will be able to see some simile in yourself, in your life. The next problem is that I'm not able to meditate. Common problem. My mind is restless. There comes the impurity of the mind. Chitta mala. All our vasanas, desires, conditioning of not only this birth, but many lifetimes are packed in the mind. This has to be cleansed. So, purification of the mind, very important. Chitta Shuddhi. And the method is Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga and unselfish action, that helps in purifying the mind. With a pure mind, if you are trying to meditate, there will be ekagrata or concentration. With a pure and concentrated mind, if you come to Gyan Yoga, you will get knowledge which will remove ignorance, and then you will realize Aham Brahmasmi, I am the Brahman. This was the traditional method of combining the four yogas in Advaita Vedanta. Clearly, you can see that Gyan Yoga is the privileged over others. You can get liberation through Gyan Yoga alone, and the other yogas are there as just a preparatory or making the foundation. But the real path is Gyan Yoga. But then there are other schools of Vedanta, like the Vishishta Advaita Vedanta of Ramanuja, who say that it is only through Bhakti Yoga that you will get liberation, through devotion, love of God. If there are other yogas needed, they will act as a helping hand. But primarily is Bhakti Yoga. So depending upon the each paths, each proponents, so the approach changes. Swami Vivekananda, as I just said, advocated horizontal synthesis of the four yogas. I mean, he said that you have to take the help of all the four yogas, to attain enlightenment. Maybe his thought was conditioned by the life that they lead in a Ramakrishna mission, the typical life of a monk. Like a monk wakes up in the morning, first he does meditation, which is Raja Yoga. Then he studies scriptures. Oh my God, running out of time. Studies scriptures, which is the Gyan Yoga. Then he does work, whatever work is assigned to him, whether it is in the hospital, library, whatever work, Karma Yoga. And the evening he does puja, which is the Bhakti Yoga. And Sri Ramakrishna also famously said, again it's in Bengali, Joto Moth, Toto Poth. As many views, as many paths. Though he said it in reference to the various religions, in fact, he practiced the other religions, like Christianity and Islam, and found that the goal is the same for all. But this saying applies even to the paths of the yoga. Now, finally, sum up. This is in the form of a matrix. I thought, quick, there are four yogas. If you look at the sources, Gyan Yoga, the source is Gyan Kanda of the Upanishads. Bhakti Yoga, source, Karma Kanda of the Vedas. Raja Yoga, the source is Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. Karma Yoga, we may say the source is Bhagavad Gita. In Gyan Yoga, the problem statement is that we already are free, but it is due to ignorance of our real nature that we are not able to see the real self. So, the solution is Jnana or knowledge. In Bhakti Yoga, the problem is lack of faith. We surrender ourselves to God, full devotion to Him. We'll be blessed with the realizing ourselves. In Raja Yoga, the problem is that our mind is restless. And that's the reason we are not able to look inwards at our real self. The solution is the 8 limbs of yoga and finally meditation leading to Samadhi. And Karma Yoga, the problem that due to our strong body-mind complex, whatever we do it to satisfy our body, our mind, my body, my mind, which cannot lead to lasting happiness. So if we do unselfish work, this will purify our mind and the truth about our true nature will reveal to ourselves. On the difficulty level, Bhakti Yoga is the easiest as there are no pre-qualifications and one just needs to surrender before God. We can start right away, right now. Next comes Karma Yoga, where you just need to change your attitude to whatever you are doing. And an easy way is to dedicate all your work to God. But again, easy to say, not too easy to do. After that, it is Raja Yoga, meditation, as we all must have experienced, not easy, especially because, we try to do it without going through the 8 limbs of yoga, which it gives, which are the pre-qualifications. Finally, the toughest of all, Gyan Yoga, which is based on pure knowledge, and the steps are Shravana, Manana, Nidithyasana. The assimilation is the most difficult part without the help of other yogas. Then we saw practically we have to make a mix and match of all the 4 paths depending upon the individual strengths and the nature of each of us. And if we combine all of them, the difficulty level is 1. It becomes the easiest. So that's about the 4 paths. Before you treat on any path, it was good to know what each path is, evaluate your own strength, and accordingly you can start on your spiritual path. It was just a snapshot, but I'm sure, you have got some idea of what each path is. We have small time. I will end with the Vedantic prayer. So, Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mriturma Amritam Gamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness unto light. Lead us from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. Thank you so much.